Hello, welcome to this live stream talking about all things WWDC 25. My name's Matt, and I'm going to be talking about the things we've just seen from Apple's live keynote. I watched it on YouTube. I'm sure lots of you watched it online too. And wow, I have some thoughts. It was cruising along and the announcement was just okay. And then they announced the iPad stuff, and I was just like... There was some stuff on my wish list for iPad that got ticked. Really big ticks. And I'm so excited. That's the one I'm most excited for. Wow. Boy, oh boy. I used the phrase, my mind is blown a lot. I absolutely am using it today to describe iPadOS updates. Absolutely incredible. I just want to start by saying, though, what I absolutely will not be doing is using my iPhone's microphone to sing into my TV. That for me was like the most random feature they announced. I don't know. If you love your karaoke, let me know in the chat. Will you be using that feature? But yeah, we're going to be talking about iPadOS, iOS, macOS, mainly those things. watchOS didn't have so much going on. But we're going to be talking about those things this evening, including the redesign, which... is interesting. I have thoughts on that too, but I know you have thoughts if you're watching. So if you're watching live, get involved in the chat. Let me know comments and questions. I'll read stuff out live on air. And if you're watching this after the event, hello, leave a comment on the video. Make sure you like and subscribe on this video. And you know what? Let's just get going because there is so much to say. So I'm here on apple.com mainly because we've got lots of really cool explanations and graphics sort of detailing what's going on. So let's talk about this redesign, this liquid glass redesign. We knew this was coming up, thanks to all the leakers and all the sort of the mock-ups that existed. We knew that this was going to be a big change. For me, my favorite bit of this redesign, and I've got to find the graphics somewhere, is they finally fixed the gradient on the mail icon, which has been completely wrong since iOS 7. So for me, that was a pretty big change because there's the gradient on the mail app. If you look on your phones or whatever now, the gradient is upside down. Compare it to like the Messages app or the App Store app or whatever, it is upside down. So they fixed that at least, but that's good. So this liquid glass design is designed to mimic visionOS and bring a bit of unity across all of the Apple devices. For the most part, it looks quite good. The issue that I have, the bit I'm worried about, is the menus at the bottom. They're bringing in this sort of floating design for the menu at the bottom, which we can see on the screen here. I'm concerned. My only concern is just the readability of that. It looks nice, but if you've got tiny little text you can see here on the Apple Music app, are you going to be able to see that if it's sort of semi-transparent? I don't know. Maybe I'm being nitpicky. Let me know what you think. But I think it looks quite nice. I'm probably not going to be using the clear icons. I do like to have my home screen have a little bit of color, but I do think it looks pretty good. Now, the one thing that did surprise me was, this is going to sound really small, is the shape of the icons. There was talk, because on visionOS, they're round icons. There was talk that they might bring that across to the other platforms. They haven't. The gradient of the circles might be slightly different. I don't know. But for me, the shape of the icons more or less looks the same. And people like John Prosser, when they were doing their mock-ups, with their leaks, they were kind of talking about how it would be not circle, not square, but more in the middle, squircle kind of thing. I don't think it looks any different. I don't think the shape of any icons looks any different. But we've got this kind of new design, and overall, yeah, it's fine. I think it's fine. I think it needed freshening up. It definitely needed that. I'm just curious to see what happens what the developers do for third-party apps. Obviously, this is going to be baked into all of Apple's apps, but third-party developers are going to have a bit of work to do to try and unify the design of their own apps across this new OS update, which is coming out, well, probably in about September, I think. So that's kind of my thoughts on the design. It looks kind of nice, freshens it up, and that mail icon is fixed. Now, what I do want to talk about is iOS, because that's what they started off with. So we kind of got this new look home screen, which I think looks quite nice. The clock changes size, and I kind of like that. I don't know what you have as your wallpapers, but I tend to use pictures of my dog. Here's a picture of my dog, and I have it just kind of like on rotation, and it just changes the picture. So it might be quite nice that the head of my dog moved down as notifications come in. I don't know, but I thought that looked quite nice. The clear icons is an interesting look. It's kind of like this minimalist look, which I think is really interesting. There was one thing I sort of hoped Apple might do with the home screen, and it's quite un-Apple-like. There is this kind of in-demand thing at the moment for minimalist launchers. So I'm currently using an old Android phone. I'm testing it out. And one thing I like about Android is you can set your own custom launchers. So on my Android phone, I just have the apps as a list, literally a list of apps. No badge icons for notifications or anything like that. I think that is something I'd like to experiment with a little bit more on iPhone. You can get the apps, they work in widgets. It doesn't work that well, to be honest, and I would like to have seen an alternative switch between the two. A bit like what they do on watchOS, where you've got the grid of icons and then you can switch it out to just an alphabetical list of apps. You have that option on watchOS, and I would kind of like to see something like that, just to have that option if you want a sort of a more minimalist, just simple list of apps. But I think that looks quite nice, and I think the glass effect will look better if you use tinted app icons as well. I don't, because I think it looks gross. I use it at night when I set them all to red to reduce eye strain, but I think it might look better like that. So that is something I kind of liked. What else we got coming up? So along with the fresh design, we spoke about Apple Intelligence a little bit here, and it was interesting with this one because they didn't announce that much. Apart, if we just set aside iPadOS, which will come to in a little bit, there wasn't like a huge amount. Like last summer, it was all very much blockbuster Apple Intelligence, this, that, and the other. And I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like they didn't quite announce as much because of how badly that went. How badly iOS 18 or 19? 18. Yeah, how badly iOS 18 went, including really marketing an iPhone 16 built for Apple Intelligence when many of the features were delayed or we're still waiting on some of them. So I felt like, it was a little bit less this time around. And Craig Federighi did sort of briefly mention that about wanting to take a bit more time to get things right. It's a very quick, if you rewatch WWDC, he did mention that briefly. So, we did get a little bit, but I liked what I saw. I did like it, and I liked the fact about you could take screenshots and you could look it up or ask ChatGPT about what's in the image. And I kind of like that. It sort of reminded me about Nothing Phone. They've got their Spaces thing, and you can do something like, it's kind of a little bit similar with that, saving screenshots, getting information. I kind of feel like Apple needs a similar thing to Nothing Spaces. I feel like if you're taking screenshots of these things, these pictures you like, they had a picture of a mandolin and a picture of, I don't know, a lamp or something like that. Where do you keep that information? I feel like if it was stored in the Notes app or it was somewhere just useful, I think it would be quite cool to just have that information stored. So that would be my only critique. But I feel like this should work quite well. So that was the brief bit of Apple Intelligence we saw. So maybe that iPhone 16 purchase was worth it. Now, a couple of things I liked was about the phone calls. I mean, I don't know how many people still use their phones as a phone. I don't know, but I did like the call screening. I thought that was really, really useful. I don't get that many spam calls, but actually getting that sort of screening come up before you're getting any sort of phone calls like that, allowing you to answer it, I thought that was great. Same with messages. Actually, it screens the senders, and if it's an unknown sender, you don't get a notification. It will just show up in the app. So things like that, I think they're small, quality of life, useful features. I'm just going to jump in quickly with the Mac Arcade, talking about Cyberpunk on the Mac. They referenced it in the keynote, but there's no launch date. I mean, they announced it last summer as well, I think, or, last September, October. So we're still very much unclear. And what blows my mind about Cyberpunk on Mac is, since the gap when they first announced it, the Nintendo Switch was announced, then released, along with Cyberpunk 2077, and we still don't have it on the Mac. Anyway, hope that answers your question. Thanks for getting involved. We'll talk about gaming in a little bit, actually, on Mac and iOS, because that's another really interesting thing that's come out from there. So returning to the iPhone, looking good. Some updates to messages. You can set backgrounds on your chats, just like you've been able to in WhatsApp and Signal and whatever else. But you can do it. Even Facebook Messenger, I think, has that feature. But it's again, fine. I'll take that. And actually, for me, that's quite useful, because the Messages app does something that I find a little bit annoying, in that if you have messages and you go to a particular person or a particular chat, you close down the Messages app. When you open the Messages app again, it opens with that chat, the same chat. It doesn't go to your list of chats. The amount of times I've nearly texted the wrong people when I've meant to text my wife could be awkward. So if I can have those little visual cues maybe to remind me of who I'm talking to, I'm absolutely down with that. A few updates to group chats, including the typing indicator to let you know when someone's typing. So yeah, just things like that. A few bits in message. Oh, and it in the phone app as well, you can pin your favorites, or it recognizes who your favorites are if you need to just find someone quickly to make that call. A few updates to maps that came out. I like the fact, some people are not going to like this, I like the fact it remembers where you've been. I like that personally. I still use an app called Swarm. There is not a single person I know that uses Swarm. If you use Swarm in the chat, let me know. I still use Swarm because I just like tracking where I've been, different places. Because sometimes I return to a place and I don't really remember I've been there. I don't know. I really like that. And I've used Swarm since back in the day when it's called Foursquare. So I've been using it about 15 years. I really dig that app. So I like the fact that Apple Maps will kind of remember those things. It'd be nice to kind of have that tracking. The wallet app got updated with digital ID. If you're in the US, good for you. You're going to get those features right away. There's still no sign of that appearing in any other countries, including where I am from in the UK. So that's, sadly, it seems to be a US only thing. But make sure you keep your iPhone. Make sure you keep your passport if you don't just rely on your iPhone to be your ID, because that could go very badly wrong. A comment here, inconsistent. Yeah, so I assume you're talking about, this is called from a kneecap of Megatron has commented, it just looks so un-Apple-like, unreadable, inconsistent. All of these features could have been implemented in iOS 18 with actual bug fixes. I'm assuming you're referring to the glass-like texture and some aspects of the UI design that makes it difficult to read. That's my concern. I'm assuming there's going to be some accessibility features to turn off some of that transparency, because if you have any kind of visual impairment, that's going to be really quite difficult to read. I'm assuming that's going to be the case. Yeah, but that's we shall see about that one. Yeah, there's a few other things, but let's talk about what devices this is coming to. So this is coming to the iPhone. Wow, we're going all the way back to the iPhone SE second generation and later the iPhone 11 series. So those phones and upwards will be getting this. You won't get all of the features. Some features will be limited, especially Apple Intelligence will be limited to iPhone 15 and above. Yeah, that's pretty good. Lots of phones are going to get that update, so hopefully you will too. Not a ton else was announced for iOS. So let's switch over to... I hope you don't mind. I'm going to skip over watchOS because I had a quick look at the notes. There's not a massive amount coming. If you're really into fitness and you want a robot to tell you to run more, cool. For me, I don't know. It just, no, cool. I'm going to skip over that if that's all right. But let's go to macOS. Okay, so with macOS, not tons, but some really quality things that came through that I really liked. So, of course, once again, it's getting that liquid glass design. So, it's going to be a consistent design across. I know there's going to be, when you look at that dock, I know there's going to be some really stubborn third-party developers who just refuse to update their app icons so it looks nice. So there's going to be a few things that look a bit out of place. Okay, so let's go over and have a look at some of these features now. Let's just scroll over. We're getting continuity, better updates to continuity on macOS. I like this one, and I like it because it integrates with iPhone, the iPhone mirroring app. I really like that. So they gave an example of like an Uber notification or Deliveroo, Just Eat, whatever. Notification comes through. When you click on it, it opens up iPhone mirroring on your computer. So it's small things like that I quite like. And it's getting some of those unwanted call features, the call screening and so on. That's coming through to Mac as well. But I like they're tightening up the integration between Mac and iPhone. I really, really like that. And I think that's a really good sign of things to come. So, yeah, some great features there. And then they spent a long time looking at Spotlight. And this was quality. This was really, really good. I can see this, that when they showed it on the presentation, they mainly focused on Pages app and doing a few things there. That's fine. But I kind of liked that without touching your mouse, you can just hit Command and Space, and then you can use it to send emails, to look up specific files you've opened in the past, and then just add it to a specific document. I think really, really cool updates there. There was some stuff they mentioned with like shortcuts and things like that. So if you're a shortcuts developer, wow, this is going to be a really big deal for you, especially when it taps into some of the language model stuff and the private cloud compute things. So makes it really more powerful, and accessing that from Spotlight I think is great. I really love this. I really love the updates to Spotlight. I think that's really, really good. Some of it reminded me of Alfred. I don't know if any of you have used Alfred, but some of it reminded me of that when you type in a 2-letter shortcut to trigger a specific app to do something. It just kind of reminded me a little bit of that. And have a look at this here. Look at it on the screen. The Mail app icon. It's been updated. That gradient's the right way round. Well done, Apple. Yeah. Since iOS 7, that's bugged me. Now, they've skipped a few things on their webpage, but I also liked the fact, and it's really simple, you can custom folder colors, and you can stick in like emojis or icons, your own icons over the top, which is great because I'm fed up of having to download like custom icon packs and having to switch them out myself. So I think that is something that really, really appeals to me. I think that's the main parts of macOS. It kind of really similar in terms of design. It's mainly about the what do you call it? That thing when you do that spotlight. There we go. It's mainly about that. Yeah, looking really, really good. Okay, a couple more comments. Kneecap of a Megatron. So overall, spotlight looks great. And I've had broken iMac mice before, which used to mean it was just unusable. Yeah. I'll tell you what, the unexpected highlight of being able to use this improved, keep getting a name for it, Spotlight, is that you can use your awful ergonomic Apple Magic Mouse a little bit less. But yeah, small quality of life updates. Looks nice. Overall, this is really, really cool. But the bit I really want to get to, the bit I'm really, really excited about, right, is... Oh, I've zoomed in. There we go. Right, iPadOS. Because we've got all the way up to this point, and they'd also covered like CarPlay and visionOS. And then they left iPadOS to the end. And up until that point, I was like, oh, this is fine. You know, whatever. This is fine. And then they did iPadOS. And there was a couple of things that I really, really wanted from iPadOS. And they absolutely delivered. And the biggest thing we got from iPadOS, which I'm so pleased with, is that we have a normal cursor. It is arrow-shaped. I have wanted this for ages. I love the fact they brought in mouse control to iPadOS. I think it was great, okay? But, you know, there's a reason we have a cursor that's an arrow with a fine point at the end, okay? If you're trying to, like, make an image bigger or enlarge a table, right, with a mouse or, you know, your cursor, with the old round cursor in iPadOS, it's like trying to move an image with a dinner plate. Like which bit of the cursor do I need to use? So it's going to be much more precise. I really, really dig this. That was the big one that I was hoping for. Okay, so really, really pleased with that. I was very excited, but they gave us more. Okay, so they've updated the multitasking. The multitasking, I mean, heaven knows what this is going to be like on an 11-inch iPad, right? But they have given you the opportunity to have 4 windows, and then you can add even more over the top. And the great thing about this is that the amount of movement and resizing you have feels far more fluid. I don't think it's quite at macOS levels. I don't think we're quite there yet, but because you could see when she was moving it on the Keynote, you noticed that when she moved it, it sort of corrected itself slightly when she let go of the cursor. But it seems to be a lot more flexible. So you can have great window placement and resizing, and it doesn't feel kind of awkward. And it's going to be made a lot easier by the fact that we can have an actual proper cursor. So I really, really like that update. You can now put custom folders in the dock. And I shouldn't be excited about this, but I am, because this, again, is really, really useful. So, you know, just like macOS, you could copy over the downloads folder from files and put it in your dock, and it will just appear just like you see on the screen there, just like it does on the Mac. You can have this. So I'm a big fan of this feature. I think that's really, really great. Very excited in a really, really sad way like that. The preview app is coming to iPad. Again, that's really, really useful. I use iPads for just simple cropping, and again, it just shows you here, you can sign PDF documents or kind of do some light editing on that. I do like preview. It's an app I use a lot. I think it's great. But I just want to draw your attention to another feature that they've brought over. From macOS. We've got our traffic lights in the top left corner of the screen. Just like on Mac. If you put your mouse over it, it gets bigger. You can click it. You can... Bravo, Apple. I know. I shouldn't be excited by these small things, but anything that makes the iPad have be more in line with a Mac, then I'm really really happy with. Some people think that iPad should run macOS. I don't, and I think I just think touchscreen macOS would be awkward and feel weird, and I wouldn't be a fan of that at all. So I like this kind of hybrid thing they're going for. And ultimately, the iPad is really, really unique because it's, the way you can interface it is really, really flexible. It can be touch, it can be pencil, it can be keyboard or mouse. Okay. So you don't want to necessarily take that away by having a direct copy of Mac OS in there. So I kind of like those small features they've brought in. Something I also forgot to mention earlier, we're getting like live translation. I think this works well in messages in particular. I thought that was really cool. I really like that. When they did the FaceTime and the kind of phone call one, I don't know what my expectations were of that, but it just felt like the person spoke in their language, then it repeated the text back in the right language, and it was too much of a delay. I don't know if someone called you up in a foreign language as using that, you might lose patience. I don't know. I get why it's there. Maybe it will speed up, but in messages, I think that's really, really, really great. Gets design, as you spoke about before. We've talked about flexible windowing. They've updated the Files app, and there's a few things I really like from that. Again, we're getting the folder customization and the custom icons. So it looks like you can put emojis or icons over the top. So that's fantastic. They showed us, and they haven't got it on their website, of the menu that when you right click on an icon in the Files app, what happens then is you can do open with, and it will show you all the different apps, just like on a Mac. It shows you all the different apps you can open it with, which I thought was great. And then I think they said it remembers which one it was. So again, it just kind of feels a little bit more Mac-like. So I really like that. And I'm going to get really excited now because I just audibly was like, oh, finally, when they announced this. Background tasks. Finally, we're getting background tasks. And I can't tell you, I used to edit videos on this channel all the time in iPad. It got infuriating, and I've switched to Mac recently, but maybe I'll be able to do this again. When I'm exporting a video, I had to keep the app open, and I had to turn off auto lock on the screen, so the screen would just sit there and be on, and I'd have to wait. And it could be half an hour, 45 minutes for a video to export. But now it does it in the background. You've kind of got this little window that appears at the top showing you what the background things are occurring, whether it's exporting a video or an audio file or downloading or some files being copied over. I think that's great. Now I'm going to take a break from my brief bit of excitement to go through some of the comments. The beta, I say beta, in America say beta, is out. I'm not sure what I should do, right? I have an iPad. I don't use it that much. I'll be honest with you. I'm a musician and I mainly conduct from it. So all I really need to do is open up an app I use called Fourscore, which basically is a glorified PDF document reader. As long as it can still do that, I might take the risk. What I'll do is I'm going to be checking out. I don't use Twitter, I use Blue Sky, but you can follow me at mattkill.com on Blue Sky. But I'm going to check out Blue Sky and just see what the early adopters say. Because if it's that unstable, I might not. But I'm only using it for PDF documents at the moment, really. Because I just find the ecosystem just so annoying. Up until now, though. What else? A kneecap of a Megatron. macOS is powerful, and so is the iPad hardware, so it just makes sense to me. Yeah, so they should be releasing iPad software that absolutely takes advantage of it. Yeah, and that's been a really big complaint, hasn't it? If we think about it, when people are talking about the iPad, brilliant hardware, just limited by the software. And I feel like we're beginning to see that. And Craig Federighi also kind of referenced some of those things that we've been asking for such a long time. And I did laugh when he was getting so excited about like changing the icon folder colors or having a pointy cursor and things like that. Yeah, I kind of like that. Some people sort of not a big fan of the liquid glass design. David says, when I was starting as a designer, I was hooked to glass morphism. And that was years ago and pretty much outgrew it in a couple of months. I'm glad I replaced my Apple things with other alternatives. Wow, thank you, David. So, yeah, I'm going to be really honest with you. I have been looking... Do you know what? I'm quite happy with Mac. I love my Mac. And I think iPad as well. Now with this new software, I'm kind of looking at the hardware for the iPhone and thinking, I'm looking at Androids and I really want a folding phone. But I don't think I'm going to switch. I don't know. We'll have to see about that one. Thank you guys for the comments. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, so what else was there? There were some other things. There's, all the usual stuff with messages and chat. And let's see what this is compatible with, because this is really, really important. So, iPad mini 5th generation or later. So, there is an iPad there's iPads with home buttons that will still pick up this update. iPad 8th gen, iPad mini still have their home buttons. iPad Air 3rd gen still has a home button. So, those older iPads are still going to pick it up, but not get all the features. And then, of course, if you've got an Apple Silicon iPad, you're going to get all of that great stuff too. So, yeah, I'm super excited. I think that's covered the things that I'm really, really excited about. Let me know in the chat what you're thinking. But overall, I think I'm going to check out that beta and I might get it installed. And if so, I might get that installed. Scott, hello, Scott. I know Scott. We run a fantasy football podcast together. Keep the receipts. Some solid advice there, Scott. Thank you very much. So let's talk about timelines for the release of this stuff. Okay, so the developer previews are out right now. Okay. In July, we're getting the public betas or betas, and then we're looking at September, usually a September release for iOS and iPadOS, macOS coming out, usually in October. I'm not sure about visionOS. There was some cool visionOS stuff. Let's talk about visionOS really briefly while we're here. See how many of you own a Vision Pro. I cheaped out and just got a Meta Quest 3. I'm going to be really honest, but the resolution on that, it's only HD, and it's not great. We was looking at, my wife and I was watching this keynote, and we were looking at this thing where you can have the calendars on the wall and the clocks, and I think that looks great. That looks really cool. But we looked at each other, and my wife said, "How long are they expecting us to be wearing these headsets for?" To the point where you need to see what time it is. How long have I been wearing this headset? What day is it? Is it still Tuesday? You lose all sense of time. But do you know what? It's a design thing. It looks really, really cool. I haven't actually tried a Vision Pro. I'd be really interested to try. But yeah, fine. Oh, and there's one thing actually they said when they were talking about Safari, and that you can have this custom view where it just shows you the kind of the text and the images floating below. And he said this is the future of the spatial web. And I thought, well, that was a really interesting insight into what Apple thinks about the place of the web in the future. What with this AI things and the amount of people using ChatGPT and other things as a search engine replacement, maybe there's a vision here from Apple that they're thinking there's some sort of spatial web when we're all wearing our Apple smart glasses and we've got a browser that we just flick away. I don't know. Some accessories, PlayStation VR2 Sense controller working with Vision Pro. Yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. The bits that I was not a fan of, just because I don't want to sound like a massive fanboy, I thought the watchOS robot talking to you was just like, I'm not a big fan of that. And then the karaoke. I'm not doing karaoke. I know Scott, who's watching right now, he loves a bit of karaoke. So maybe he'll be singing into his iPhone on an Apple TV. I'll get you. You can come around mine, Scott, and we can do that then. But that is version 26. They've changed the numbers. That is version 26 of iOS, macOS, iPadOS, watchOS, and visionOS. It's all coming out later this year. For the most part, it was understated, not much going on, and then the bombshell of iPadOS, which I might go and install now. And if I do, I'll do another live stream or something talking about what I think of it. I don't know. Would you come back and watch that? Let me know. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there because there's no more questions and things in the chat. Thank you so much to everyone who's watching. And we hit 70-something viewers on this live stream at 1.78, I think we hit. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a brilliant day doing what you are doing. I hope you enjoy the Apple updates when they come out. Thank you so much for watching. And if you are new to this channel, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe. I do tech stuff. I do music related things. I've done some stuff about the Logic Pro updates that came out recently. I intend to do some more stuff around Apple things, iPad in particular. My channel's known for iPad stuff. So I would really appreciate it right now if you could hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so much for watching. I've had a brilliant time this evening. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye-bye.